Hi, my name's Eric Hillis. I've been a resident of San Diego for 20 some years now, and I created this video specifically for any city government officials here, but it could be for any city, it could be for anybody who's interested. First question is, as a city government official, have you ever felt overwhelmed by the needs of the city? I'm sure you have. And have you ever wondered how to get neighbors who have excess of anything to be able to provide for other neighbors, or for residents of a city to feel a sense of ownership in that city? With today's technology, I think that's something that should be easy to address. So that's what I'm doing this video for. And you'll see in the following presentation how I'm thinking about that. So who am I? I'm a software developer. I've been programming for 30 some years now, and I'm in the process of going for what's called a Conscious Business Change Agent certification. So what is that? That revolves around something called the Conscious Business Declaration, which was formulated a few years ago by an organization called Humanities Team in cooperation with some other groups. And they created this declaration, and many have signed on to it, many companies, businesses, individuals. And there's a community practice that they created to sort of support that with community members who are like-minded, who want to see businesses become more conscious. So that's basically what it is. I'll go into the Conscious Business Declaration a little more in a minute. I also will have links below to all of this stuff. But the idea is that to be certified, I have to create a project where I plan and implement something that addresses several of the Conscious Business Declaration points. My project, which you're going to see explained in a bit here, it was inspired by someone named Michael Tellinger, who created a One Small Town project. I'll have links to that. The idea is treat a city as a business. So instead of a conscious business now, I'm looking at conscious city. How can San Diego become a more conscious city? How can the members of the city become more conscious? I say members, residents. So if any of the ideas here inspire you, or you feel like this is something you want to check into, please just get back to me with anything, any feedback. Thanks for watching.
So I've titled this presentation, Igniting the Spark of Consciousness in Our City, How San Diego Can Become a More Conscious City. And I have this little drawing here, or this little picture of San Diego with a spark in the middle of the picture. And a little hand, I don't know if you can see the hand underneath that, sparking the city. I'm going to just go through what's mentioned in the video, the Conscious Business Declaration, and this is it. I'll have a link to where you can view it. The main point of this that I want to sort of feel like is the main emphasis is that the idea that we're all one with humanity and all of life. Businesses and all institutions, including cities, are integral parts of a single reality, interrelated, interconnected, and interdependent. So as we sort of put that into practice in business, the idea is that we become more conscious of how we're affecting each other. When we affect others, we affect ourselves. What's good for all is good for the individuals. What's not good for all is not good for an individual. So the idea is that we're helping each other and we're helping the environment, and not just sustaining things where they are, but actually trying to improve things. That's the number 3, I believe, going beyond. Okay. This sort of demonstrates the amount of disconnectedness we have. If all of us knew where everybody was going and we just kind of coordinated that somehow, this wouldn't happen, seems to me. But I don't want to spend a lot of time on that. The busing system here in San Diego has a lot to be desired. From my point of view, I need to walk 2 miles, 45 minutes to get to the nearest bus on the coast, or from where I live. I'm in Carmel Valley. I don't think there's a huge demand here. Everybody's got SUVs. They could care less about taking a bus, I'm sure. Anyway, just thought I'd put that in there. So my presentation here is using a Kumu diagram. And basically, the idea revolves around creating a collective labor force with members of the city population and using that collective labor force to sort of get success in implementing all of the community projects that are created and needed by the city. But it goes deeper than that, and I'm going to go into that a little bit detail here. So the idea is, and you can read that on the left if you want, that in this proposed system, residents who have registered, and it's voluntary, nobody's required to register, but for the ones that do, they are basically donating or contributing 3 hours per week of labor to the city, and the city credits their how much labor time. The idea is that people contribute. There's a thing I call a people's bank. Well, I didn't come up with that, but anyway, there's an idea of a bank where they're, and then this is all basically software, where people's time is credited, and they basically have a sort of collective ownership over any of the products produced by this system. What I came up with here was an individual labor credit system. Now, this goes into a lot of details, which take a while to explain, but, and I'm just scrolling here. The point of this whole thing is that, and I just want to summarize it. I'm going to put a link where you can go in and see me breaking it down in a little more details. But what this ends up doing here is basically everybody contributes 3 hours of labor to the city to be a part of this system. Anything they contribute above that 3 hours, they bill for those hours at their, at their current salaried hourly rate, let's say, for whatever type of work they do. Those extra hours, so if it's a service that is like a repair service, or a, like maybe they're sick, somebody's sick, they need to go and if they're a doctor or a dentist, they need to do some dental work. These extra charges are billed to the city as additional charges, and everybody in the city pays those as a sort of like an insurance premium every month to cover the costs of those repairs, or to cover the costs of emergency work that's needed. If the city says, hey, we need this thing done, some catastrophe happened. So it's kind of like covers like an insurance that the city can create that's paid on a month-to-month basis as needed. And then as a way of preventing abuse, you sort of figure out who's using the system more than others on average. And at the end of the year, you can say, okay, this person's premium is going to go up a little bit more than everybody else's since they use the system a little more. So that's just a summary of this whole thing. I'll get into a little more details in a separate video if you want specific details. But the point is that this system eventually, as the community projects that produce products and sell products or sell services to people outside the system, as the sales and as exceed the price of these premiums, eventually there are no costs to anyone. And that's the goal of the systems, to eventually work itself out, that people don't need to end up paying anything. In the beginning, they may have some fees.
The next thing is the community projects. How are these determined? So I came up with a few that I think are examples, but this is by no means exactly what would be done. So I point out here, there's the first one recommended. I'm going to go ahead and forward here. First one that's recommended by the One Small Town is the Renewable Energy Project. Now, I noticed in doing a little research that San Diego signed on to what's called a Compact of Mayors. It was signed by 7,000 cities or more, actually, a couple of years ago, that cities that want to become 100% renewable energy cities, so relying on 100% renewable energy. Because of that, now, in the case of San Diego, they seem to make, the plan is to become 100% renewable by the year 2030, I believe. So based on that, this is quite a long time. I think that time could be shortened significantly by using a system like this. Some of the renewable energies that could be used in San Diego particularly would be things like wave power. The ocean waves provide a tremendous amount of power from what I've seen in the research, and cities on the coast can take advantage of that. But in addition to that, wind power, solar power, geothermal, whatever is available can be thrown into this and could be community projects that people contribute their time to get this thing up and running as quickly as possible. Some additional projects I have here. This Uber system, I'm calling it an Uber system. Innovation in transportation. Basically what it amounts to is the city has its own sort of Uber system. Now, initially this may be implemented almost identical to Uber. Person, uses an app, says, here's where I'm going, here's where I need a ride to. How can I get there? And somebody comes pick them up. Eventually this would turn into driverless cars, so you wouldn't have to allocate people to provide this service. It could just be driverless cars, electric driverless cars, so it's plugged into the energy system and you don't have to pay almost anything for this service. It's just a free service. I realize it's a competition to Uber, but so be it. I don't think Uber was too concerned when they saw them became a competition to taxi services either. So, this is just a way of providing free transportation to, or nearly free transportation to people in the city. I put down here support local organic farmers. Another community project could be you want to start organic food as much as possible to as many people as possible, and that's another project. Home the homeless. You could start a project where you have certain part of land designated for homeless and start building some homes. You use people that know how to build. People that are homeless could actually participate, learn a new trade of building and what's involved. If they're willing, that could be their way of participating as well. And finally, I just threw in an additional one here. City beautification project would be another aspect. Cleaning the city, cleaning people's homes, cleaning whatever. If somebody needs their home cleaned, that's another type of project. Individual service. Now let me distinguish. As I said above, previously, a city beautification project would be free of charge when people use their 3 hours of time for that. If somebody says, I want my house cleaned and I want somebody to come and clean my house, that's an individual service, and they would pay for that. So that's, but they would get a discount, obviously, if they're in the system. Okay, so regarding the proposal to businesses, I really want to go into the issue here of businesses. How will businesses be handled? The idea is that businesses would be brought into this system and treated like individuals. In other words, owners of a business would be treated like individuals, and the owners who have different types of businesses would be handled differently as far as what their contribution to this system will be. I'm going to have a link below where I go into the specific types of, these are 3 that I came up with. I know there's all kinds of, but the principles should be pretty clear from these, that we have the 3 different types of businesses, and that there's ways to include businesses into the systems so that they also can share in this whole thing. And what it really means is business owners. When I say businesses, I mean the business owners, the ones that are benefiting from the profits of a business. Those owners would have a way of benefiting from this system, sharing in the profits, sharing in as if they make an investment. So I'm going to sort of skip this part over and move on to the software system and explaining that a little bit. What kind of software would be needed to handle this kind of thing? So most of the decision-making aspects would be handled by software. So you wouldn't need people to handle all of this complicated mess. It would all be done by software. And so the way I see that happening is that we have basically, let me just forward some slides here. This is a busy slide. I want to just focus in. So the real nuts and bolts of this whole system is described in this first slide here, where residents express interest and skills on a website. So if this system is agreed upon or wanting to be tried out, letter be sent to residents. They choose whether they want to participate. It's not obligatory. Anyone that wants to participate can. If you don't want to, you just stay the things as they are. But the ones that choose to participate, they would enter into this website locations and estimated times a day when and where they would need a transportation, which would be provided by this Uber-like service. So this could be used to determine, if there's people in a similar area going similar places, and all of that would be handled in advance. They could indicate what skills they could either offer to the community as a contractor, as we mentioned before, or they could offer to train residents who would like to learn how to perform skills. Now, when they're being used in the capacity of a trainer, my opinion is that their time should be 50% more valuable than when they're just being used to do a particular service. So if they're training someone, for every hour it'd be worth an hour and a half. And somebody who's being trained, who doesn't know anything about a particular skill, would be given half credit for their time while they're being trained. So it averages out. Okay, there you've got two people, 2 credits. One's getting 1.5, one's getting a half. I'm sorry. So in addition to, so they're offering these skills. There's the Uber-like service. Maybe they have a driver's license and they want to be included in the initial phase where we need drivers to provide that service. So until we get to self-driving cars. And also times a day where they can offer their skills to the city, since they may have jobs that current electric bill, that would be used to help determine how much electricity needs to be provided by the city, and then whether they're willing to offer their property, if they own property, for solar panel installation or for gardening or agriculture. So that would be another thing. Or maybe they have a piece of land they want to donate for use of building homes for the homeless, and all of this would be credited to these people. Also, they would indicate whether they want to provide make use of skills that are offered by other people. Maybe they have some needs they know about that they could use somebody with certain skills. So that would kind of give an indication to the city of where certain skills are needed in the city. Also, if they own a business, they could indicate whether they want to hire laborers from the city, whether they want to share in the profits using the different mechanisms that have been explained in the previous slide about businesses, and what times of days they may want to use the services provided. So there would be software that would coordinate all of these things and determine when and where people are needed. So, for instance, you have an app that person says, I'd like to be trained in a particular profession. They would indicate that, and somebody else who indicated they want to offer training. You have an app that for a person who wants to request a particular resource, maybe it's food, of types of food they want to indicate that they would really appreciate having. And you have an app that person is offering certain types of things, and they would coordinate together. So if there's a lot of people that want avocados or oranges or whatever, this would all be indicated, and you'd know what things you need to grow because you have a demand indicated. So other, like I mentioned earlier, what kind of services. And as I mentioned, this includes all kinds of things like plumbers, doctors, whatever services that people generally provide. There's the offering and there's the request for service. There's the transportation would be included under there as a service. And so that covers that. Additional software things that would be addressed. Okay, so this software would manage the profit sharing, so you wouldn't need banks to handle that. The software would let me see, I mentioned that here. So people wouldn't need to be laid off because, you know, if somebody's skills are not needed so much and other skills are needed, somebody could be told, hey, look, if you go and learn this skill, we have a lot of need for this. Maybe you want to go learn something else. You know, maybe the thing you're doing right now is not in a heavy demand. And then there's the issue of security of the data. You know, a person's worried about someone going in hacking the system. This word hacking has been thrown around a lot lately. We have ways to handle this to protect the data so that it's transparent. It's out in the blockchaining is the one way to make sure the data has integrity, that nobody can go in and hack the system. And voting, throw that in there. There's going to be times where you're going to want to ask the people in the system, what do you think of this idea? What about this project? What do you all think? And you want to get people's feedback and have a very easy way for people to indicate. And of course, again, there's ways to do voting systems that are not hackable if you use open source software, and is one aspect of it. Also having two different systems that people enter their votes into so that they're independent systems, and you can kind of corroborate those votes in the two different systems made by two independent groups, let's say. That's just one way to do it. So that's the software. In summary, we have the collective labor force. That's the kind of the engine behind all this. People get individually credited and can also continue to work. Profits come in eventually through different projects and offset some of the charges. People can get sort of like it's handled sort of like an insurance policy when a person needs work done, and when the products that are produced exceed in value the charges that are done in the work that's done additionally through labor, then you end up getting into an equilibrium state where people don't actually need to pay anything to be a part of this system. So the system eventually works itself out of people needing to pay anything for the system. And so, as I mentioned, the different businesses, how they can get involved in this, and then how the software can handle the different things. And San Diego becomes a more conscious city. And I put at the bottom there, and they lived happily ever after. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you're understanding it. If there's any really weird stuff, I didn't want to get into too many details of some of the specific projects, but on how to handle this collaborative effort, I hope I explained that well enough. Thank you for watching.